Hi, everyone. My name is Kyle Nordforce, and welcome to the panel discussion of rapid public safety operations with Doc Drones as a first responder. My normal job, I am one of those few that are on this panel that is not a commissioned or sworn officer. My normal job, I'm a captain on a 737 for a legacy carrier here in the United States. However, I do get a volunteer quite frequently with our search and rescue team, and I am the UAS flight operations manager for our UAS operations. In addition to that, the Mountain Rescue Association asked me to head up the chair for all UAS missions for the Mountain Rescue Association, and we have 90 teams here in North America. However, let me introduce you to our star-studded panel here, and we're going to start off with Chief of Police from Redmond, Washington, Chief Lowe. Will you please go ahead and introduce yourself?
Greetings, Kyle, and everyone on the panel. My name is Daryl Lowe. I'm the Chief of Police in Redmond, Washington, which is a suburb of Seattle, and I'm happy to be with you today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chief. And then we're also privileged to have Captain Moore from Asheville PD.
Hey, welcome, everybody. My name is Brandon Moore. I'm a captain with the Asheville Police Department. I run the patrol division, and I'm also the drone unit commander.
Thank you, Captain. We also have Jason Day, who is the Director of UAS or Unmanned Operations for the Texas Department of Public Safety.
Hey, happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm Jason Day. As Director of Unmanned Aircraft for Texas DPS, I'm basically responsible for the administration, the coordination, the oversight of our UAS program. And Texas DPS is the largest public safety UAS program in the United States right now. So happy to be here.
Yeah, it's actually a privilege to have Jason here with us with the diversity of their fleet, and we're going to be relying on him and his expertise quite a bit during this panel. And then also we have Joshua Pruitt, who probably has the longest title of all of us here. He is the Director of Partnerships and Strategic Initiatives. Josh.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kyle. I am the other non-sworn, non-Leo on the call today. Again, my name is Joshua Pruitt. I'm the director here at Aloft. I've been in the public safety UAS space for a little over a decade, staunch advocate for the end user, just really excited for this discussion today.
Thank you, Josh. And you bring a unique perspective that the rest of us don't have on this panel. So we're going to be picking your brain quite a bit as well. So for those that don't understand the whole premise of drone as a first responders, it's gone through some reformations throughout the years. And there's what we call DFR 1.0 and DFR 2.0. DFR 1.0 is kind of like what we would often refer to in the industry as the Chula Vista model, where we are operating or launching drones from the top of buildings, and we have a pilot in command, a PIC on top of that building that is still watching the drone and making sure that we see and avoid and that the drone isn't entering an airspace or getting close to other manned aircraft. DFR 2.0 is kind of where the industry is going to, and we have a couple individuals on this panel with their 2.0 DFR program, where you no longer need to have that person up on top of the roof or that visual observer that allows you to, so you can launch remotely. And virtually, you can launch these drones out of their docks or from their nest from virtually anywhere in the world. And so on that note, Chief Lowe, let's turn to you first. Can you please describe your program in Redmond, Washington, and more specifically, the manner in which it has transformed your operations from a chief of police perspective?
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. So currently we're operating two different platforms for our DFR program. We are currently operating from 3 different docks. It's allowed us to get a visual perspective on calls for service in less than 2 minutes. It's allowed us to reduce our ground response by 25% of the time, which then frees up officers for other calls. As you said, we are at that 2.0 plus stage and really trying to push and enhance the DFR space for the end user. As Josh mentioned, there's a number of platforms and things out there, but at the end of the day, it's about being as effective and efficient as possible to provide safety for the community and to provide a smooth, reliable platform for our pilots.
On that note, Chief, you live in a part of the country that is very pro their own privacy and the like. Can you please tell us what the public reception has been of your DFR program up there in the northwestern part of the United States?
Very skeptical at first. It took a number of community meetings, number of council meetings, and then ultimately understanding the concerns that the community has for their privacy, and then also operationally making the camera at the horizon while responding to calls and returning back to the nest. So the only time that the camera is actually looking at the ground or at the people is when we get within about 50 yards of the actual call. And that was sufficient for both my elected officials and for my community to understand what the purpose of the DFR program was for. Unlike some other agencies, we are not currently flying proactively. We respond to specific calls for service. I think that's the other thing that right now is a bit different. We may get to a point where we do more routine, patrols with drones. I know there are a number of agencies that do that. We are not currently in that space yet.
Yeah, the reactive police work, I think, goes a long way with the public sentiment and their appearance of it. I know that there have been other agencies that have worked hand in hand with the ACLU in ensuring that all the safety concerns are taken care of. And it does seem, I think, by and large, when it comes to drones use in public safety, just like the root of most fear, it's the lack of education. And like you said, it takes a lot of time to talk to the politicians, to talk to the people that you're serving to get the buy-in on that. But with that lack of education, I think there's a lot of confusion and misunderstood concepts in the DFR space. So Pruitt, I'm turning to you on this one. So what is the most important aspect of selecting a platform for your specific DFR needs?
Yeah, for me, and again, coming from an end user perspective, having advocated for the end user for the past 10 years, due diligence and intense scrutiny of the platforms that are out there. This space, along with real-time crime centers, remote operation centers, whatever you want to call them, whatever acronym you want to use, these are the buzzwords in public safety right now. And there's a lot of eyes that have turned into this space and given it a lot of attention. But for agencies, this is for many a fundamental change to their patrol operations, to their day-to-day operations. Some departments even, considering this as a, patrol-led DFR or a DFR-led patrol, depending on how you want to look at it. I think it's important more than ever to talk to end-user subject matter experts, talk to the programs that have gone through the selection process, have looked at all of the different platforms out there, from some of the OGs to some of the new school players, and really just rely on the professionals that you've put in place within your organization to help guide your decision. Unfortunately, there is a lot of smoke and mirrors put into play in this space. And I think it's just incredibly important to see these platforms in action. Go visit the Asheville's, the Redmonds, the Chula Vistas, the Pearlands, the folks that have really paved the way and have put the work in. See what they're doing, see how their operations are running, see if that's something you want to mimic or if it's something you want to take to the next level. But for me, that level of due diligence, that intense scrutiny of these platforms is the only way that you're going to make an informed decision. Because again, this is a long-term fundamental change to your policing operations. So that's kind of my perspective there, Kyle.
You hit on so many different things there that I wish we had the time to expand on, because there is a lot of misinformation out there, and what works well for one group or one agency is not necessarily going to be best and ideal for another group. And I want to highlight what you said, to go visit these agencies that already have their DFR programs put together. I've been down to Chula Vista. I've been to Pearland. My airline that I work for is based out of Seattle. I've already talked to Chief Lowe, and he welcomed me with open arms, saying, "Yes, please come up." And we're going to talk a lot of aviation, I'm sure, when I am able to get to Chief Lowe's agency. And I've also heard the same thing about Captain Moore. But it's imperative to go out there and see what else is available, or what other programs are doing, and try to mirror or come up with a solution that's best to your unique situation. Now, I think the concept of DFR is one that is tried and true, something that has been proven time and time again. Now, Captain Moore, you, more than anybody else on this panel, and I would dare say anybody else in the country, maybe the world, has had to use your DFR program in such a way that was instrumental in saving lives, and also just in the aftermath of the hurricanes that you had come ripping through North Carolina. Can you please expand on your experience and maybe some lessons learned of how DFR helped you to save lives, preserve property, and how instrumental it was during the hurricane recovery?
Yeah, no, I will definitely hit on some of those pieces. We won't have enough time to talk about all the ways in which we were very blessed and thankful to have had this in place. We didn't obviously know how beneficial this would be, or the ways in which we would implement it. And Chief Lowe and Josh hit on it with the agencies and what's set forth. But, we run and had a docs system in place. We run both 1 and 2, as you described it, Kyle. Benefits of both are there. I think specifically to this panel, everybody would agree not one program is going to fit every jurisdiction. And I think if you hear of these various platforms or companies out there telling you that DFR is for everybody and this is the way it has to be, I would run from that group, because it's not. I think it's very specific, data driven. I think the chief would jump right in on that. We looked at that from the beginning, and our chief was super supportive of, look at the data and see what we can do. But 62% of calls for service happened for us in a 3-mile area that's within my downtown zone. That was kind of a no-brainer to be able to get to those calls, as the chief described, and sometimes under a minute. That gives us that leg up. And so when that then transferred into a storm response, you talk about manning and the reduction in manning from a very basic perspective. We're able to do that by putting these docks in place and flying drones in these areas. But then when you talk about having a reduction in staffing in the city of Asheville prior to the storm, we were fighting over 40% reduction in staffing. So as everyone across the country dealt with that, and we all talked about how DFR can change that, you still have to staff DFR. And so we looked at what that would have to end up providing us in the way of where do we put it. And then when the storm hit, we saw that exponentially increase. And so luckily we had a platform in place and a company that assisted us in flying remotely over 3 days in assisting. And so I reduced, obviously, what we all know from those 2 individuals to 1. And then with the waivers that we've now gotten in place, we've changed that. But the work still continues now, even though we're not in this direct rescue effort. But having docks in specific locations, and I really would take up all of the panel's time to talk about all the mistakes that we made. But we will be sharing those, because we hope nobody has to fall into those. God forbid the next disaster hits, but it's going to. And we want to be ready and prepared to kind of give a playbook that we didn't have of how do we best utilize this, working with federal partners when we didn't really know what it is we could or couldn't do. But having, docks, drones available to provide overwatch, to provide safety and security for FEMA teams that are in the water specific to our problem, as well as now mapping missions and additional work that's being done with all the data collected and the data moving forward. We had 3 docks and over 14 platforms within the city and thought we had a pretty proficient program. Now we have 12 docks set up in and throughout the city. And have only seen exponentially the increase, not only for regular calls for service that we can attend to, but the additional work we're still doing in the recovery effort after the storm.
I think you're absolutely right. We could spend a few different sessions just going over the pros and cons, lessons learned, and it's nothing specific to Asheville, but just anybody that survives and goes through what it is that you all went through and saw and had to manage and organize. I'm sure we could all benefit from hearing from your lessons learned and what you might do differently. But when you do have a natural disaster like that, and you are fortunate enough to have your system already set up like you did with the docks, it's imperative that you're able to integrate those other agencies that are coming into you. So this is where I'm going to turn to Jason Day and his expertise a little bit more, because Jason Day does manage the country's largest fleet of drones in public safety. And not only does he have quadcopters, but you have a range of different types of aircraft types and makes. So how is it that from a managerial perspective, do you keep everything situated and deploy the right asset for the right job?
Yeah, that's really challenging, and that's a good question, Kyle. It really kind of starts with training and making sure all of our operators are well versed in all the different kind of technologies that we have and what's available to them. What's kind of unique about DPS is we are multi-divisional. So we have 6 different divisions that operate UAS. I work for aircraft operations. We're kind of umbrella over the program. But each one of the divisions has different mission sets. So that means they have different aircraft. And somebody like Highway Patrol, that their primary mission is crashing reconstruction, the airframes that they have is going to be very different than the Texas Rangers, who are doing higher altitude border operations or criminal investigation type of work. And then you have our criminal investigations division, which is kind of doing everything in between, right? They'll do a lot of indoor stuff. They'll do investigative work. So where you'll have Highway Patrol, where they will have a divisional office and they will have a locker with all of their drones and they share those. It's a very different model for criminal investigations, who each one of our special agents will have, they have an indoor drone, they'll have a small, like a Mavic sized drone, and maybe they'll have an M30 or an M300. So it's really challenging figuring out how to distribute all those assets, make sure they're in the right place, but people are well trained on all the different airframes that we have, so that if they get called to assist, they're able to use that, not just whatever their daily driver is.
Being able to integrate everything is such an important aspect. And there are a lot of different, we're not trying to promote one software or brand of drone that might be better or more suited for one agency over another, because every agency, like Pruitt was saying, is so unique. But so Jason, can you please talk to us about some of those softwares, just as an idea that you use to help integrate everything? Because if you use an OEM platform that is only specific to that one make or model of aircraft, then that means that's pretty much isolated, right? So what kind of softwares do you use to be able to integrate everything?
Yeah, that's super important. And again, a great question. Early on, we had to identify that problem and realize that from an operational perspective, from a training perspective, and from a management perspective, we had to have one system of record for all of our airframes. We are a user of the Axon Air powered by DroneSense platform. We're probably the largest user of that platform. And having a fleet management system for 400 aircraft and 400 pilots has been incredibly important, because it not only allows us to track all of those assets, whether it be a Blue UAS or a DJI or an Autel or whatever, but it allows us to track all the maintenance and all the safety and all the training and every aspect that goes into having a program, right? And this is something we talk to a lot of agencies about. There's a huge difference between having a drone and having a drone program. And a drone program means you have all the components to do this safely and efficiently. And the software component is probably the biggest part, because everybody needs something different. Me as the administrator, I need to be able to manage everything, see all the flight times, see all the maintenance, see everybody's proficiency in their 107s and all of those things. But your guys out in the field, they care about the operational, the tactical aspects of this, right? So they're more worried about what is the flight platform that they're actually is on the controller, and how are they streaming that and making sure that's working. Then you have your command staff, who they just care about the operational hub experience, where they can see all the drones in real time, collaborate with other agencies. So you really have to look at something that can encompass the entire picture, not just, hey, I'm going to go out and fly a drone.
Yeah, thank you. It's so dynamic. It's so much different than just having, like, when drones were first introduced into public safety, just having this toy and tossing it up and seeing what it can do. It's having an actual program and managing it efficiently and effectively, such that you're able to make a difference for the people that were charged to take care of, is quite a feat. And you do need to have that software. You do need to have that backing in order to make it all happen. So in the world of search and rescue, so my little niche when it comes into drones, I'm just like the rest of you, I don't make a dime in this industry. I'm always just about, give me the best equipment to be able to that allows me to go out and save as many lives as possible. And I know you all have that very same attitude when it comes to this. And as I'm looking towards the future when it comes to DFR and just using drones in public safety in general, I can't wait for the day when whether it be Starlink or whomever is able to get that satellite connectivity down to like a credit card size. Right now, using the Starlink Mini is or having that satellite connectivity is just so game changing for us in mountain rescue. But Chief Lowe, where do you see the future of DFR? So you in Redmond, in your city, what is it that you see coming down the line that is going to make your operations more efficient going forward? Or what is the direction in which you like to see DFR go?
I think, as has been pointed out, with the number of players coming into this space, understanding that it is not a one size fits all proposition, that there be, I'll say, candor and transparency, from those, vendors and manufacturers, that they do right by the customer and by the community, and don't sell them or oversell them a platform that is either too complicated or too large. But then the other part of it is understanding that, as Brandon said, not every agency is going to be able to stand up a DFR program. So we need to start looking at the regionalization aspect of it, so that agencies, such as mine, such as in North Carolina, that we can provide this, as a service or as a mutual aid to some of our smaller, agencies, or agencies that don't have the ability to get on board with it. Because as we've all seen, this is a game changer. This is the future of law enforcement. But to Joshua's point, we just have to get this right, because there are a number of players coming in. There are a lot of promises being made. As an agency head, I've seen a number of different pitches and different things. And while you're always respectful, to Brandon's point, on some of them, I was like, yeah, thank you, but no, because I can, I know, and as I say, I know enough to be dangerous, but I also know the right questions to ask. So that's where I really see the future at, is regionalization, and understanding that not every agency is going to necessarily be able to start their own program, but all communities can benefit from this new technology.
I totally agree. And that is actually something that Jason has actually hit on in the past and other conversations that he's had, where drone as a service, right? So you have other people plug in and use your asset. Along those lines, Joshua, back to you. What is it that your company and other companies like yours that are doing to provide that UTM, or airspace deconfliction? Because we talk a lot about DFR, and most of our focus is on the box in the aircraft inside. But the five of us know, and so many other people realize that have tried to set up this program, it's a lot more than that. You have to have deconfliction mitigation systems in place. So, Josh, you being in that space, what can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. So just really quick before I jump into that, I just want to go back to something that Captain Moore said. They have 12 sites in the city of Asheville. One of the biggest issues we're seeing from a lot of platforms coming into the space is these overinflated costs. I implore anyone that's on the panel, anyone that's listening today, reach out to the city of Asheville, because 12 docks is no small undertaking. 12 platforms is massive. And that should help you get your budget a little more in line and compare some of those numbers you might have gotten from some providers out there. But again, to go back to what Kyle said, there's a lot of different solutions out there. Some are turnkey, some are hardware based, some are software based. We have some third-party services that's kind of bridging that public to private gap. Where we fit in, where Aloft Technologies fit in, we try to be an airspace management tool, because a dock and a drone is really only one piece of this DFR 2.0 puzzle. We have to have some sort of detection arm for not only unmanned, but also manned aviation. So whether that's, if you're lucky enough to live under the mode CVAL, you're just going to need ADS-B. But for some of the others, we're talking ADS-B, we're talking radar, we're talking some visual sensors. Now there's remote ID coming in and RF identifiers. There's a lot of ways to accomplish the same goal. And it's just going to be about what fits your agency best. Hey, are you going to go the radar route? Okay, did you know that if you go the radar route, there's also some FCC rules and guidelines that you're now going to have to follow? That's a big one that I guarantee most people are not thinking about when it comes to radar solutions. There are some great players in that space. If you look at Campbell PD, they're using the matrix space radar. It's a great solution. Just to going back and doing that due diligence. And also, again, like I said, DFR is only one piece of the puzzle in this public safety technology space. You need to make sure that whatever platform you go with is not siloed, and that it works with other public safety technology ecosystems for real-time crime centers, for sharing out this information, not only within our organization, but beyond our organization, for mutual aid agencies, for all the federal partners that are coming in to help when we have a hurricane response or other disaster response. We have to play nice. We have to share knowledge. That is the only way that we boost and continue to grow DFR 2.0 to 3.0 to 10.0. And again, some agencies may not have the staffing to make DFR a reality, but these public-private relationships and this kind of DFR as a service is really starting to make waves. And if you're a smaller department out there, that you're like, man, we really would benefit from a DFR program, we just don't have the staffing, we don't have the level of expertise. There are some strong third-party service companies out there that are doing this work, and I would implore you to connect with them as well.
All right, I'm so sorry. I have to hit the mute button so I don't sound and look like an idiot, which is my MO 90% of the time. But hey, you just hit on a few of my biases. So as a manned aircraft pilot, and that's my primary job, my primary job is flying people from point A to point B. And so I'm occupying the airspace and I'm in charge of quite a few different people. So you were talking about ADS-B. For those of you that don't know what ADS-B is, or the Mode C VAL. So the Mode C, basically what we're talking about is when you're living close to a bigger style, what we refer to in aviation a Class Bravo airport, is that you need to have the ability to see other aircraft, have a transponder built into the aircraft so that you can see and avoid the midair collisions, is basically what most of this is set up. And that's a big part of the DFR solution. And as someone that is on the other side of this equation, I am so grateful that so many agencies and so many people are out there doing their due diligence to make sure that they're complying with the FAA regulations, because not only do you not want this aircraft to fall down and hit the citizens that we're flying over, but we also don't want to collide with other manned aircraft. And when I tell you how as someone that is in that seat up in the air, I'm so very grateful that these regulations are in place. But let's transitioning back a little bit more, Captain Moore. I saw you head nodding quite a bit when Joshua was talking there. Do you want to expand on anything that he was saying and the complexities of ensuring that you have the airspace deconfliction in place?
Yeah, I think Josh and Jason both hit on some key points, and at some time through this event, I kept writing little notes to myself, trying to thank all the people that showed up to help us. We had 13 different UAV programs from around the country come and assist. Then we had all kinds of partnerships privately that showed up. And, you know, at one point I felt like a NASCAR driver trying to thank all my sponsors at the end of a race, just trying to thank all these people. But that was what was key. You know, they didn't have to show up, and we try to stay away from mentioning them, and I won't do that here, but I do need to speak to the fact that there was one of our partners that we're a client of DroneSense, and they did do what Jason and Josh just spoke about and what Chief Lowe kind of alluded to. When this kind of hit the fan, when we really realized we had an event and it was going to be one of disastrous proportion here, that is the entity that took in everybody and provided my emergency operations center with one feed. And at one point in time, there were 13 separate drone missions with 5 different manufacturers, all flying underneath one space, one air boss, one person mitigating airways, one person divvying out assignments. And that was key to where we had fallen down in the first few days to what we could find and truly say was successes. And so you do need to find that. And then we do need to make sure all of us are pushing to make the space better. And that means at any point in time we do something, it affects everybody's program. And so I think we were trying to be cautious as we set this out. We do run a radar program here as well. It didn't come about because I thought, hey, we need to make sure we are all about some air mitigation. It was actually brought to me by a fixed wing pilot. And they had worked with the company that we utilize. We partnered with our hospital, who runs the majority of where I share airspace in an actual medical evac. They fly 4 separate helicopters from a level 1 trauma center here. So that's who I'm sharing this airspace with, and I want to put a DFR program in place. So we found a provider that agreed not only to provide what we needed from DJI remote to remote ID to radar, both fixed wing and UAV, but also they were going to go the step further to help us ensure, and Kyle, you'll know this, that a fixed wing pilot can see these drones, because it was news to me amongst all of the work that we had done that even our helicopter pilots could not see any of the UAV around them. When our radar was installed, we did a quick snippet, 30 days. We found there were 595 drone flights within a 3-mile radius of my city. That was crazy. Only 50 of those were the police department. So it shows you the hobbyist drones are out there and they don't fly by the same rules, though they're supposed to. So we need to ensure that we're really thinking about airway mitigation. And as we talk about getting to waivers and what that looks like, we definitely need to make sure that that stays prominent. There's a lot of different providers. And again, Josh hit on this, it gets expensive. And so we need to make sure that these are things that you're thinking about. I know the chief knows this more than any of us, that budget goes really fast. And when you get into this space, it can dwindle down even quicker. And so, you know, the city of Asheville, thankfully to the chief that I have and had in the past, 100% open to any public safety agency that wants to learn more or do more in the space. They can come and see it. We are currently still running 4 different management platform systems because we agreed to test and work through a whole lot of different bugs with different versions. And so my guys have a capacity. I understand what that is, but we want to ensure that though we got to the place we're at, we're actually trying to make it better moving forward. Somebody can learn from the lessons. And we had a lot of pitfalls that we fell into, but hopefully that ensures that someone who didn't think they could get into this space actually can.
I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate your willingness, Captain Moore and Chief Lowe, and I know Jason's very much the same way. Chula Vista is the same way. The openness for allowing other agencies to come in. So I just want to harp on that point one more time: the importance of aviation safety and following the regulations. With LEDA, I teach a course on crew resource management and the importance of aviation safety culture. And we harp on that there's a reason why these regulations are the way they are. And a lot of these regulations are, as we say in aviation, written in blood. Because somebody or a group of people had to die in order for these regulations to be come into place. Thankfully, we don't have that yet, though, Captain Moore, as you indicated, the hobbyists do not perform the same way a lot of times than we do. And it's important that we educate and share and learn and grow together, because you're absolutely 100% right that we all, if one of us screws up, it affects everybody out there. And there's just such an importance for us to share and grow together. So on that note, Jason, with your very unique perspective in managing an entire state, not just a state, one of the largest in the country, with the largest drone program, you interact more with other agencies, smaller agencies, city and county agencies. So what has been your experience in integrating that way? But also, I'd like to hear what it is that you would like to see going forward with not only DFR, but the UAS industry as a whole. And then if you'd like to expand on private and public partnerships as well.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. The biggest thing is we're in this weird place right now where the FAA has really jumped on board with finding ways to enable public safety to do more advanced operations. And that is great. We have a great relationship with the FAA. We applaud them for them finding ways to make this happen. The problem is, and I've told them this, and many of my colleagues have as well, is for some agencies, they're making it a little too easy, right? Having a DFR program is not where you should start. Until you have a program that is professional and you've been out there and you've actually done this with your pilots on the sticks, you shouldn't even be looking at having a DFR, having dock drones, because there's so many things you don't know. You don't know how to be safe yet. So we really encourage agencies to slow down a little bit, right? Figure out the things that they don't know. And this goes back to the collaboration. Go out and do operations with other agencies and see everything that they're doing and how they're mitigating the risk. Because we unfortunately, we don't talk about the risk enough. There's lots of risk in this, especially DFR operations. And, the same thing with the FAA. I keep telling them, hey, you got to tell these agencies they need to slow down a little bit. And because your job as the FAA is the safety of the national airspace system. But when you're doling out waivers like they're candy, maybe that's not the safest way to do this. And there was a training aspect. So something really interesting happened the other day. We got both of our waivers for BV loss with no visual observer, right? Using airspace awareness and ADSB and stuff. And one of those we're fairly lucky because we have a pretty large budget. So we were able to put one of the systems, and we applied for a waiver at our training facility that's out in the middle of nowhere. So we got our waivers back and we're reading through it. And it says the same thing that all of them say, for BV loss stuff, that 91-113, 91-155 are waived for BV loss operations that are limited to public safety operations where the deployment of the unmanned aircraft is deemed a critical component to protect human lives or property. And I'm like, well, time out. One of these, we didn't ask to do that. One of these, we asked to just do training. They're like, well, you can't do this. You can't get this waiver just for training. And then how do you train your people to do this safely in the real world? So going through and talking to them, they realized, hey, we can actually amend the language and allow you to do this just for training purposes, not just for the operational stuff. And it surprised me that this concept hasn't come up before, and that other agencies weren't saying, hey, we need the operational waiver, but first we got to train our operators how to do this safely. So just again, as an example of everybody might need to just slow down, especially those new programs. And the one thing I'll say to anybody that's on here from public safety that's still looking to get a drone program is just because it's cool is not a reason to have a drone program, right? There should be some legitimate use because it's going to cost you money. And we've had numerous instances where agencies have asked us to help them build out their program. They're like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with the drones? And they're like, I don't know, but having a drone program is cool. So we're like, again, man, time out. You gotta pause a little bit. But on the last topic there, the public-private partnerships, this is really the key to the next phase of DFR, where it is now not just a tool for law enforcement, but it's now a tool for all public safety, fire, EMS, emergency management operations, where private sector is maintaining the drone in a box and the drones and doing the maintenance and all the upkeep, the really expensive and the labor intensive stuff. And the public safety agencies are just paying to be able to leverage the technology. This is the things that are going on in so many of these metropolitan areas is phenomenal. And the amount of work that's being done with DFR programs is really saving lives and increasing the way that law enforcement can respond. But a good analog is that, like drone delivery, where the real benefits are going to be in your rural communities, where it takes an ambulance a long time to get there, or it takes fire a long time to get there. And having drones strategically placed in rural areas to be able to respond now, not minutes before that fire truck or that ambulance, but 10, 15 minutes before, that can be a huge benefit. And that's what, in speaking to all the drone delivery partners, it's going to be the same thing. But we have to communicate. We have to talk together. Why can't you have a delivery drone in a box sitting next to a public safety drone in a box, sharing the same intelligent infrastructure and doing more good with drones?
Wholeheartedly agree. That definitely is a direction in which we as a community, public safety community, not just law enforcement, but also everybody else that has a dog in this fight, needs to have access to this technology, because it's only going to help everybody in the end. Chief Lowe.
Yep, as we're wrapping up, just thank you to all my fellow panelists. Thank you to NextGen for this opportunity. And as was mentioned, if anyone from the law enforcement world wants to come out and take a look at our operations or speak to myself or any of my team, we're more than happy to share, as Brandon said, the bumps and bruises and mistakes that we made along the way. And again, just thank you for having us here.
Chief, I certainly do appreciate your willingness to share the lessons and everything that you've learned for everybody else. Not every manufacturer is this way, but it does seem that everybody here in the public safety space, we all want to learn and grow together. Pruitt, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to thank Pri and her entire team at Flight Base for putting on NextGen, for making me a part of this panel. These guys on the panel with me are some of the top tier experts in the space. If anyone is looking to have a very frank and open conversation about selecting hardware or putting a platform together when it comes to DFR operations, I welcome it. You can find me on LinkedIn. But it's been great sharing knowledge with you guys today. And Kyle, thanks for moderating.
It's been a pleasure moderating this. Captain Moore, would you like to jump on and say any your last bit of wisdom for us?
It's easy when you follow those two, because they definitely hit it. I mean, I think we need to do more of these. This definitely needs to be how we increase the space. And if we're being honest, how we hold all of our platforms accountable. Anybody who's done this already knows you have to be on them. We're not in it to make money. Kyle made that comment. We can't, but we need it to be the best. We want to provide the greatest tools so that we can serve the community the way that we know we should. So we got to push all of those boundaries and make them do the same. Sometimes that doesn't make them money. Sometimes that doesn't make us popular, but we know what the ultimate goal is. And so I think more of these, Flight Base and others that put these on, the conferences you can go to, that you really get into the conversations that make this real. I think that's going to ultimately prove what we spoke about here, but making that space better and more accessible.
Awesome. Gentlemen, it's been such a privilege being on this panel with you. I certainly hope that our audience has been able to take something away. Please reach out to any one of us. We're all on LinkedIn, and then our emails are obviously out there so you can jump on. My last little bit that I'd like to hit upon is that you are operating an aircraft that is inside the National Airspace System. You are sharing airspace with manned aircraft. Please treat it accordingly. Please remember, you are aviators, you are pilots. Please understand the regulations. Please understand what it is that you're doing and the significance of it. These are not toys. These are tools to be used to save lives. We certainly do appreciate everybody that has joined us here at NestGen, and we look forward to talking to everybody at some point in the future. Take care.